Hello there and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this is a video on what is currently happening in Palestine and a call to action to do what we can about it. So I'm going to spend most of this video explaining the links that are in the description. Because I am not an expert, I'm going to refer you to a bunch of resources for education on the background of what's going on, for education on what's currently happening, actionable items, and we're going to bring it to a close with a little conversation about books. So to start, I'm going to summarize some information that I have gathered from various sources. Some of these are TikTok videos and Instagram posts that I then either backtracked to the source that they were citing, or or some of them were like posts from people on the ground, such as Doctors Without Borders. Israel, as a government, as a country, has been colonizing Palestine. Now, I believe 7 years ago, Israel blamed the work of Hamas, which is a terrorist organization that is based out of Gaza, which is where Palestinians began being removed to, I think also in 1948, from their lands that the Israeli government had colonized and taken. Gaza is a strip of land about 25 miles long. I'm not sure how wide it is. Israel, and I believe also Egypt, closed the borders around Gaza, this very small area where a bunch of Palestinians had been removed to, and they said it was to restrict the movements of Hamas. Obviously, it also restricted a lot of civilians. There are millions of people living in this condensed area. It has been called an open-air prison by some people I follow. Sim Kern, who is disseminating a lot of information about this, has said that they were corrected by someone who is Palestinian, who said it's more like a concentration camp. Last Saturday, it is now, as I'm filming this, October the 14th. According to ABC, Israelis were wrapping up the 7-day-long Jewish festival of Sukkot. Hamas attacked and killed about 1,200 people, 1,200 Israelis. So, in the days since then, the Israeli government has decided to bomb the Gaza Strip, as well as, before doing that, cutting off food, water, and fuel to the Gaza Strip. They then said that they were going to bomb the northern part of Gaza Strip and that all the civilians should move down to the southern part. However, what actually happened is, not only was the path out of Gaza bombed, and they're just generally not letting people out the same way they haven't been for the last 7 years, they also are bombing both the north and the south. I'm going to read now from a CNN article that I'm going to link below about the movement advisory from the IDF, that is the Israeli military. And I'm going to also put this up on the screen. The IDF's order has raised international alarm and sharp criticism from some rights groups, especially as critical supplies run out, because medical supplies and food and water are not allowed in, and deaths rise in the isolated enclave from which residents say they have no escape. Now, quote from OCHA head Martin Griffiths is that the order to evacuate 1.1 million people from northern Gaza defies the rules of war and basic humanity. Another quote is, roads and home in Gaza have been reduced to rubble. There is nowhere safe to go. And he also said that forcing scared and traumatized civilians, including women and children, to move from one densely populated area to another without even a pause in the fighting and without humanitarian support is dangerous and outrageous. He added, warning it would bring catastrophic humanitarian consequences. I've been watching some footage, which I will be linking a variety of on-the-ground people in Palestine and organizations that have links to people on the ground. who have been posting videos of what is going on. City blocks reduced to rubble. And I've seen some pretty graphic, bloody things as well that did have a sensitivity shield over them before I removed that. So if you don't want to look at that, don't remove the shield. Basically, this is a ramping up of the colonization and genocide of the Palestinian people by the Israeli government, aided by the US and I believe several European countries. Specifically, the US sends money and weapons. Now I have a list of resources that I'm going to read off to explain the links in the description. First of all, to get more information, there is the Doctors Without Borders Instagram post, which is fairly long. There's also that article on CNN that I mentioned, and that has that page has more updates coming in, and there will probably be more resources in the description than what I talk about, because after I film this video, as I find more resources, I will continue to add them, and they will be in the description of my videos for a while to come. There are a couple of books that I can recommend that I have not read, but that I recommend based on other people's recommendations, such as Sim Kern. That is Palestine, a graphic novel, which was written by an American reporter who went there, and The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine by Ilan Pape. And I will have a longer book list in the description as I find more information. Now for actionable items. There is a card called Stop Gaza Genocide that I will be linking. It has a bunch of actionable items. One of them is to go to jvp.org, which is a Jewish website that is anti-Zionist. And it has a resource where you can set up to call your representatives if you live in the US. It will figure out who your reps are and their phone numbers for you and set you up to do that. And it has a script that you can read off to leave on their messaging system. You can also take that script and go to the contact information of your state reps, and you can fill in the little blanks and email it to them instead, or in addition to. There are several other on the Stop Gaza Genocide links that have different ways to contact your congresspeople. There's also the Palestinian Youth Movement, which is organizing protests in various cities, both in the US and elsewhere. They also have social medias that I recommend you follow. I found the best way to keep track of the protests in which cities they're happening is the US Campaign for Palestinian Rights, which I will link, which has them all detailed out. None of them are near me. There's one the closest one to me is in Seattle, which is 5 hours away. They are pretty much major cities that these are happening in. The US campaign is also taking donations so that when aid is possible to the Palestinians, there is money to fund that. Now about books. Those two books I mentioned about current events and history in Palestine I'm being careful about which books I recommend, because if you just go looking for information, you will likely find a lot of Zionist information. Whereas I have kept my book recommendations and ones that I'm planning on reading myself to ones that are either written by Palestinians, recommended by Palestinians, or have been vetted by anti-Zionists. Sim Kern has both created and shared a few videos recommending Palestinian books, both fiction and nonfiction. So I will have a list of those below. There are a couple graphic novels that I have either finished or I'm in the middle of. Squire by Sarah Afagi and Nadia Shamas. And Nera and the Jinn by Ismail Omar Atta. I finished this one. I'm in the middle of this one. This one is about colonization and the colonizing force making colonized people into tools of further colonization. Much similar themes to Prism Stalker, which is another graphic novel I've just been reading. It also has Alana Kelladry vibes of Tamora Pierce's work, so if you like those things. And this is set in present day and involves a jinn who is helping this girl come to terms with being bullied for being a Muslim and negotiating old and new friendships. Ones that I have not yet read are Salt Houses by Hala Alyan, The 29th Year also by Hala Alyan, and Balcony on the Moon, Coming of Age in Palestine by Ibtisam Barakat. L of Reading on TikTok also shared that Sonia Suleiman, who is Palestinian, has created a long list of Palestinian written spec fic on the purpose of reading books by Palestinian authors. How does that help? I have heard from people in the book community, and I believe myself, that reading is activism. That's why book bans are a thing. The people who want to oppress other people want people to be ignorant so that they don't fight against the oppression, so that they don't have weapons against the oppression, and so that they can do a better job of dehumanizing oppressed peoples. I'm going to link a video of Sim Kearns that is all about the purpose of dehumanizing people and putting them in ghettos. That is a key part of capitalist white supremacy. Therefore, the reasons that various medias and governments, such as the US government and the US media, portray Israeli people as people and Palestinians as less than people. And you can see this in some of the verbiage and the things that are chosen to be reported on by the US media, which is why I am somewhat wary of CNN. Even though it is one of the more liberal medias, you still can't take it at face value, because the US industrial machine places value on having Israel be a state that is beholden to them, because it is a place of power in the Middle East from which power over oil can be maintained. This circles back to books, because as the government and medias try to dehumanize Palestinians, reading books by and about Palestinians rehumanizes them to us. It undoes some of what the propaganda of our governments has done. And spreading awareness of these books spreads the anti-propaganda that shows that these are real people, and that genocide against them is not okay. That they are not, as an Israeli general has said, animals. So if you want to engage in some reading as activism, I recommend you check out these various book lists and recommend them to people you know who you are aware may not consider Palestinians to be people. If I've gotten anything wrong, I apologize, but I will put any corrections that people tell me about or that I find out about in the comments or description. And obviously, things are ongoing and are going to change in the next few days, as things have drastically progressed in the last 7 days. And thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.